What's up YouTube? In this video we're going to be talking about how to kill yourselves a massive buck. Let's get straight into this. Okay fellas, let's talk about early season if you fellas are watching this the next year, because right now as I am speaking, making this video, is the prime of the rut. I mean, these bastards are running around everywhere. But fellas, let's talk about early season. So when looking for these early season massive bucks, you want to be looking for a few things, because these bastards, they are going to have a few scrapes, not like anything like the prime rut. These bastards are going to have like a few scrapes. You just find little dirt patches, maybe a few little antler rubs if they're getting down to that sort of degeneracy. But fellas, the main thing I would look for are the deer paths, the intersection, the highways, the roads, whatever you like to call them. You gotta find those. And you want to find where exactly they are walking during the day, preferably, but if you can find where they're walking the majority of the time, not every day of their lives because they're deer, they're gonna wander, but if you can find their usual paths, the road, and find that main intersection where all the deer congregate, I would set up a stand there, because this is going to be a good bet that he's going to return there, hopefully while you're there. Next fellas, let's just say you guys have a food plot like radish, beans, rye, anything that deer will chomp. I would put a few trail cameras in there, because you never know. Maybe he will make that his main dinner site. Maybe he'll make it his breakfast. Maybe he'll make it his lunch meal. Whatever. If he's eating there, that's also a good spot for the early season. But fellas, I would remember this. Deer, they will move around. They're not going to stay in one area forever. They will move off, they'll come back. Or they may never leave, or they may never come back. They are deer. So just kind of expect in the early season that you may never see these deer again, because they will move off. Now fellas, let's talk about the pre-rut. Now these bastards are not going to be all horned up yet. There may be a few that are horned up, but the does are surely not. So you kind of got to plan for that. These bucks, they're going to be going more to A to B type of joint. They're not going to be chasing does around. They're not going to be wanting to fight every single buck. They're going to be going to more or less, like, let's just say, from food to bedding area to food, blah, 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 blah. They're going to go to A to B. So you kind of want to either put a blind or a stand in the middle of that sort of road. That's where scouting comes into play. You want to put in the middle of his path or to the finish line, because trying to get the start where they're bedding in the morning, that's going to be a bit hard. You're going to really spook them away unless you're an absolute stealth machine. Because fellas, this is why I found best to hunt early season big bucks, or bucks in general. You kind of just want to cut them off, because they're not chasing does. They're not all horned up. They're not going to be coming to crash and rattling. They may come to a little sparring rattling because they're curious animals. The main thing I would try and focus on this part of the season would be just to try and get in between, let's just say, the finish line, or be at the finish line where they want to finish. Because if you're just set up, let's just say, in a food plot where he's been at recently, and he comes in, success, he's in. But as a lot of hunters know, it usually doesn't go that smoothly. Now fellas, I almost forgot. This here's a quick tip that may save your season. You want to be getting on these early rubs and scrapes, because fellas, let's just say you put a trail camera in front of one of these early rubs or scrapes, and it turns out to be a monster. You want to be at that spot as much as possible during the early season, the rut, or late season, if he's there constantly. But really during the, let's just say, pre-rut, you want to be there early, because fellas, that's the spot he's going to be at a few more times, or a bunch of times. It depends on the deer, but you want to be there if you can find a fresh one early, because if you can get there while he's there, game over. Now fellas, let's talk about the rut, the prime hunting, the prime season, let's just say, where all the hunters are out there and all the deer are horned up and moving. Now fellas, this is where the slip-ups begin for these monster bucks. All the intelligence from all those years, let's just say you're dealing with an 8-year-old buck, a monster buck, and when the rut hits, a lot of that intelligence that buck's gathered, out the window, because he's so horned up on that doe, he's not thinking straight, so you can literally call him in, where earlier or later in the season, he's not even gonna be listening. So in my opinion, obviously, the rut is the best time to hunt these bucks, because that's when they're on the move constantly during daytime. That's when these bucks are more receptive to calling and just things in general that they wouldn't be. It's like if they smell you but they see a doe, they're not gonna just be down there. They're gonna still go after that doe. And if that doe circles around and she's gonna bring that buck with them, boom, game over for that buck. So my tips for hunting during the rut: you kind of want to be in that intersection where all the deer meet up. Like, let's just say trails, where all the deer trails meet up in this huge ball of intersections. You either want to put a mock scrape along the stand blind, whatever, you want to put something there, or you want to set up there. And that's sort of X where all the deer are, or if you have a food plot where all the deer go, hunt there obviously, or any place where there's a lot of deer activity, you want to be there. And fellas, you want to be there as much as possible, because you're never going to know when that buck's going to be there. When he's all horned up, juiced up for that doe, he's going to be making a lot of mistakes, and that's where he can thrive. Now let's talk about the late season, gun season, and the later parts where usually the rut dies down and all the deer are kind of scared for their lives. Now, this part of the season can be the toughest because these bucks, they've been shot at all year for 2 months during bow season, during the rut, and pretty much gun season. So they're all going to be hiding, but it's not impossible to shoot a buck because you can either, one, get lucky, like some other guy, your neighbor scares his buck to you and he's running for his life. Boom! But that's just luck, fellas. So how to get these bucks during the later season, besides dumb luck? Like early, middle, rut, you just want to be where the deer want to be, because these bucks, they will slip up sometimes. Like they may, right at dawn or dusk, they may be moving to a new spot, so you can get them. And this also applies to hunting pressure. Let's just say if you're on a massive plot of land where there's literally no hunting pressure, that's going to be very different for you. These deer are going to be moving around still, but if you have a lot of hunting pressure, those bucks are going to stay down way more. So your chances go down pretty big, but still not impossible, because these bucks will still come out during the daytime. Not as much as before, but they'll still come out. Now, so how would I hunt these big bucks during the late season? I would lessen up on the aggressive calling, like no more big smashes of the rattling. Maybe just like do a little bit of sparring rattling if you want to rattle, or just do very light calling, because these bucks, they've been called at all year. They're kind of sick of it, so just do like one doe bleat, like something like this. Nothing fancy, or like a very, very young buck. Very light stuff. You do not want to freak out these deer, because if they get freaked out, he's gone. Now fellas, let's get into calling. When calling at, let's just say, these monster bucks, we're going to start with rattling first. I would start off like this. I would start off with really light rattling, like sparring, because you never know what's out there. You know, there could be a massive buck in a bush or a pile of brush just 50 yards away. You just don't know and can't see him. So just start off with very light stuff for, I would say, 5 minute or less spurt. Then wait 20 minutes, and if nothing comes in, then, you know, start really getting into it. And if nothing comes in at that point, do it in a half hour to an hour. Maybe there'll be a buck around, and then they'll come in. And do the loud stuff during the rut, and do lighter stuff during the pre-rut and later season, I would say. Now, onto these bad boys. How I like to call, let's just say if I see a big buck right there, like I can visibly see him and he's walking away, go like this. And remember, I do it behind you. Remember guys, if he's walking away and I can see him walking away, do it behind you, because it'll sound a little more quieter and it's from that direction. And these deer have very good hearing. I mean, I've had deer literally pinpoint right under my stand when I call. I mean, it's crazy how they know where exactly that sound's coming from, so do it behind you so it sounds a little bit further away, because fellas, you'll hear it. And fellas, another one that works for me good is this. This will get them riled up and very curious, I've seen. Just one doe bleat and a few little buck grunts, and this usually brings them over, because I've just done buck grunt and they have worked, but I've noticed that the doe, combined with this, when you're doing it right at a buck, a big one, or just a nice buck in general, or a little buck, that's where they come to the most. Nothing like very deep, or like a big old bastard. Usually they kind of get freaked out about that. Not always, because, you know, you get some of them big horned up bastards that would want to kick his ass. But I found that combination works the best. when calling at bucks in general, but also experiment because every deer is different. Not every call is gonna work. Like that, what I just did there may not work at a monster buck or a little buck. It may not work that day, but the next day it could literally bring in the buck of a lifetime. So experiment, see what works for you and for your deer in your area, I guess you can say. But remember, fellas, the deer will act different on the day. They're not going to act the same every single day of your life. They're not going to come in the calling one day and the next day, boom, they're all in front of your stand because you just did one little doe bleat. So experiment. Don't be afraid to call or not to call. Because, fellas, the deer will act different per day pretty much. If a buck's coming to you, and this one will seem obvious, but I've seen hunters do this. When you see a buck come in and he's just coming in like how you want him to do, don't call at him. Don't do anything. Just let him do his thing. Do not let him know that you're there, because once you start calling, he's just gonna go look around. Because unless you have a decoy out there, gonna look, and when he doesn't see that doe or buck, he's gonna get all freaked out. He's gonna circle all the way around, downwind so he can smell, and when he doesn't smell the deer, but he smells you, whew, game over. And that going into another tip, you want to try and hide your scent as much as possible. It's gonna be damn near impossible, not entirely, but remember, fellas, these things have amazing noses, so the more that you cover up, the better off you'll be, because how most hunts go bad is when the deer smell you. I know, fellas, it's hard, but just try and cover up as best the smell as possible. I cannot emphasize that enough. You want to cover up that smell, because, fellas, once they smell you, they're gone, and they don't need to hear you, they don't need to see you. Once they smell you, game over pretty much, fellas. Because, fellas, I've had deer right under my stand, 5 yards away, 10 yards away, and look up the tree, try and listen, and nothing, because I stood still, I didn't make any noise, and they walked away just fine. But, fellas, a deer that's 60 yards away or can smell me downwind, game over. They won't come closer. They either run away, start going, or just not come any closer. So, fellas, you just want to cover up that smell. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to see your last deer hunting video down here. And, of course, you guys want to see your last duck hunt video down here. But besides that, I'll see y'all next video. See ya!